How we doing? We're good, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Feels like I should have done something else. Yes, I nearly slipped, falling off the swing that I'm just trying to build. But anyway, let's jump in to this week's episode. Oh, but before we do, we have a neighbour who lives up the street and they walk their cat. And of course, sometimes I think the cat doesn't want to be doing any walking. I know my cat, the last time I put like a bridle on him, he did not like it. He was all crunched over and just like, oh, that actually twinged my neck a bit. Maybe I shouldn't do that. So now we'll start the episode. Well, today's task is to try and finish this. Okay. Good, this ground is a bit more harder than it was the other day. Every time it rains, it gets really boggy, especially in the area behind the bark. I actually have thought about spreading more bark there to soak up the water. We actually have a bit of a drainage problem, and that's a future video. But anyway, subscribe if you want to find out. I think I said this in a previous video, if you can lean against a post, it's good. So these are good twice. And now I'm putting the horizontal bar on the top. Kind of need to check whether it's level so I know how much to correct it by, simply because the two posts weren't dead level when I set them in the ground. You're kind of rushing and it's like the last thing you think of. It's not crucial. I can correct it now. I'm just measuring both the bottom and the top to make sure that they are in line with each other. I think they were cambered out a little bit. Toe out, camber. Maybe that's camber and toe in is going that way. No, anyway. I think that's a look of disappointment. And off I go. Now I'm going to cut the end off this horizontal pole. But of course my miter saw is only a certain amount of depth. In fact, it can only cut to a maximum of 80 millimeters, which is 8 centimeters. It's like that much, which, however you want to look at it. The problem there is that this is a 125 by 125 square post, and I will need to flip it around. Is the old trusty. I should have said mask after that. The main reason why I'm putting this mask on is this is H5, and in New Zealand that means it can go in the ground in wet situations. Tapping it because it's full of wood and hard to move. And of course it's got a lot of chemicals in it. So yeah, you're not supposed to cut these ends off, but that's only if you're actually putting them in the ground. And I didn't cut the two posts that are there. I'm going to cut this end off to get the right distance. And then I'm going to paint both ends. So if water does end up sitting anywhere near it, it's not going to go very far. You probably heard the Darth Vader noise there, didn't you? Oh, right, next thing to do is paint the tops. And again, that's just to stop water getting in that end grain, even though it's not necessary. I have seen a lot of posts rot at the top because sometimes they're cut on an angle, and that does enough to make it drip off. But I just wanted to give it that extra little bit of protection, maybe give it another year of life. Now you probably saw in the background that there was this plane flying by and it left this contrail. And as I was editing, I noticed that it actually looked really, really beautiful. That's cool. So once that's done, put the pocket on there. And then we work out the hard part. Hard part being how to set up these angular pieces. Have a cup of tea. Have a cup of tea. Most of the time when I get to a point where I've got to think, I try to stop, have a cup of tea and some cookies, and kind of just like relax my brain a little bit so that when I come back, I'm all raring to go. Well, my brain is more raring to go. And I'll cover the angle parts a little bit later. It does get a bit complicated. Well, I've just finished having lunch and I had a really nice Caesar salad. I just had Caesar salad as well. Wow, we're in sync. I've finished painting the cross member and the tops of the poles there, and now I'm just trying to think, should I put it up there? Is it dry enough? Yeah, we'll leave it a little bit longer. What we're going to try and work out now is how to get the 4 pads in place for where the supports have got to go, angular supports. So this is where this guy comes in. There's a way of turning off the beeping. I went to go and grab the remote because it was the only way I could figure out how to turn the beeping off, the annoying beeping sound. Best thing to do is just set everything up and then go for it. So come with me. Falling over myself here. Turn you on, get you going. It's dirty. Go to time lapse again. Oh, we want to go back. Yeah, that was good. Moving that camera around, I've got 3 of them, and I've got 2 really cool tripods, and then I bought a cheap one, and it's just because they get thrown around quite a bit. But moving them 3 cameras around every time I'm doing something can get a bit crazy. And in the weeks to come, I'm building a gate and a fence, and of course those 3 cameras get super annoying. Okay, I need to work out approximately where 1184 is. 1184, so here. So what I've done is measured 1184 from the side of the post out, and I'm starting to dig an area for the pad that I'm going to be putting down. I'm going to do that in both sides, so it'll be 4, one on one side, one on the other side, on both sides. And of course I have to move a fair amount of this bark just to even start, because the bark is exactly where I need to put these pads. And I got a little annoyed. This was the first time that I thought, yep, it's definitely the wrong time to get the bark. Should have got it later. The next step is to set up the laser, and I'm basically shining the laser level onto the tape measure and making note of that distance, and then going to each place and marking it on the pole so I know what reference level there is. Once I have all of those reference levels, I know all my distances from the ground level is the same. And now I can start digging the holes for the boxing that's going to go in. Because the calculations would determine the angle of the braces, I had to get the distance of the pad from the posts in the right place. So I drew it up in CAD, this is Fusion 360, to figure out how much space I needed either side of that vertical post. Vertical post. And I did this in the early stages because I did actually need to know how far out I needed to go, and then I could determine the length of the brace that I needed. For this though, the most important information that I needed was that distance. And now that I had the right distance, even though I was actually getting the right distance anyway, I started to dig the next one. I'm just trying to work out, have I made the right choice here? 400. Okay, we're going to be making some, what are we making? Making some formwork for the concrete. 400 by 400 somehow. 400 there. Yeah, wonderful. The camera kept on pulling focus to the front of the monitor and then back to me. Most of this footage was out of focus. Blah blah. And then I tried to be a hero and tried to lift all of those pieces of wood. Oh, I was gonna make some in a very short space. Let's just take these. But I didn't drop them. So I took them round to where I'm going to make these boxes. Okay, I've got to dig this one a little wider. The idea here is to dig out the right dimensions of the pad and then squeeze the box in there so the box doesn't move after I put the concrete in. That kind of meant that I had to kind of dig and then try to fit it in. If it didn't work, dig more out. At some point I even got the sledgehammer to bang in the wood. If you remember last week's episode, there was a lot of root systems in the ground, and no different here. I even used the small sledgehammer to kind of tap the dirt in. I screwed the box together and then lay it in the hole where it was supposed to go, and it's all good. And then on to the next one. And the real problem with this one was that I wasn't too sure whether it was in the right location. So I measured it and then I moved it. And then of course, once I'd moved it, I then had to redig the dimensions, replace, remove more of the dirt to get it in the right place. And then all of the bark got kind of mixed up in it. And every time I'd throw the spade in, I'd hit bark. And of course, it's quite springy bark because it's playground bark. And I'm actually talking to someone. While I was editing this, I thought that, well, I'm doing a lot of talking to the camera. But no, I'm actually talking to someone who's standing in the driveway. And then we repeat the same thing all over again. Get it in the right place, then kind of redig the hole. This hole was by and large the deepest hole. And then we get to the last one, and my framing's not that great there. But this had a gigantic root in it. And I was thinking, well, you know, all of the trees here are gone. There's no more trees left. Where's this huge root coming from? And right there is a banana tree, and I thought, well, maybe it's the banana tree. So I thought maybe I should leave it there, but then I realized, well, I don't think the banana tree would be wood. So I got the short axe and I started chopping through it, but I couldn't get through it. So I got the bigger axe and cut the buggery out of it. And because I couldn't really get most of it out, I just cut enough so I could get the box in. And that pad is going to have a bit of a surprise in it. It's going to be a little bit of wood mixed in the concrete. And there we go. We've got all four done. I have now put a spacer on the vertical pole, and I'm putting the horizontal pole that has been painted. I was basically waiting for it to dry, so I've now put it into place. After it had dried, I put 2 coats on it, and I'm going to screw in one side. I've gone off to get the ladder. I'm going to screw in one side, and then I'm going to screw in the other side. I don't know whether you can see there, but one side is it's too short on one side. So the way I got around that is I screwed in one side, so I go off and get some ratchet straps and I strapped them around the top and I ratcheted it up as much as I could. They were quite small ratchet straps and it wasn't quite enough, so I thought, okay, I'll go get another one. So I put the second one on there and then ratcheted it up, and then I basically got it in the right location. And that solved the difference when it was splayed out like that in the ground, those 2 posts. It sort of brought them together. They are in a little bit of tension because obviously they're pulling out the side, but it will be nice and strong. I'm not entirely sure what the shear strength of the bolts that I put in there, but I actually put a set of 4, I remember now. 2 with a very high shear strength and 2 which don't have high shear strength, but that was just to locate them. You don't see it here, but I paint the top of them and I've covered them as well. And had a little play on the swing. And so there we go. We're all ready for the last 4 pads. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you've enjoyed this video, give it a bit of a like. And if you're liking my videos as we go, just click on the subscribe so then you can get notifications for the videos that I'm going to be uploading next week. And I generally do it once every week maybe Monday, Tuesday, New Zealand time. And of course, if you're wondering why each video goes a week at a time, I basically film 3-4 days a week, and then I have a day off, and then I edit for maybe 1 or 2 days, depending on how much footage you've got to go through. And then I just repeat that each week. So I tend to not clump too many things together. We've got different projects coming up. I'm currently working on some. Got a little project here. Come by next week and you'll see me do some of this. And some of this. Okay. Look. And some of this. So until next time, you have a wonderful week, and we will catch you next week. I don't even know why I looked behind me that time.